Hi, I'm Tim. Please join me in this video as we discuss Spectrum's new SkyID Remote ID module. Let's get to it. In this video, I'll go over Spectrum's SkyID Remote ID module. This Spektrum SkyID system appears to be the first true plug-and-play remote ID module that comes in at under $100. It went on sale August 25th. I bought it on August 25th. This is being filmed a few days after that. Remote ID kicks in about 2.5 weeks, September 16th, 2023. When remote ID comes in on the 16th of September, if the FAA does not extend the date, when you're flying an RC model airplane, helicopter, or drone, you either have to fly within a FRIA, which is an FAA Recognized Identification Area. It's a small airspace around your club that's approved by the FAA as a FRIA. FRIAs do not require any remote ID. Any other flying outside of a FRIA after September 16th requires some sort of remote ID. Drones that were manufactured after December 22nd, 2022 have remote ID installed in the factory. All other aircraft, to include your models at home, the ones that you build, ARF kits and so forth, you'll need to use a remote ID module to be compliant with the remote ID system. As I mentioned, the SkyID Remote ID module, I ordered it October 25th, 2023. It's going to take a couple of weeks to ship. I do not yet have it, but I'm doing this information based on a lot of information that has been released by Horizon Hobby on their Spektrum Remote ID system. So if you look at my notes to make sure I get everything right, the SkyID is FAA Remote ID compliant. As part of the SkyID system, it locks onto GPS satellites. The GPS gives ground speed, altitude, position, heading, distance, and a time. It's all built into the device. It's worth taking a look at the Declaration of Compliance that came out just a few days ago for the SkyID system. This is the official FAA certification that SkyID is compliant with the remote ID rules as mandated by the FAA. SkyID is also FCC, Federal Communications Commission certified, because it does transmit signals. The signals that are transmitted are Bluetooth 4 and 5. Bluetooth 4 is a range of 200 feet. Bluetooth 5 is a range of 800 feet. In my mind, 800 feet is not a long distance, but that is what they are using for this system. There's a lot of concern out there for other parties with apps monitoring your flight to come and harass you or do something. 800 feet is not a long distance. It'll be interesting as this is used how far the signal goes for people to know that you're flying and to come see what you're doing. In the box, you get the SkyID module itself. There are 3 connectors with various pin arrangements to get power to the system, to include 3 and 4 pin ZH connectors. There's some Velcro tape to mount it. In an instruction manual, the SkyID system comes completely built. There's nothing you have to assemble. It does support telemetry, and the SkyID can work with non-Spektrum radio systems. It's a small unit, about 1.2 inches long, a little less than an inch wide. It weighs less than half an ounce. I repeat, it weighs less than half an ounce. So the weight should not be an issue for most models. With drones, you'll have to figure out how that figures into your drone, but half an ounce is pretty lightweight. And all you need is power. So one of those 3 cables will connect to your receiver. I'm pretty sure, hopeful, that my BAT portion of my receiver, which I don't use too much, will provide the power for it. There is also a provision to connect it to a battery. I don't have any information on the battery if you're going to use it in a sailplane operation. Doing some research on various discussion groups, Spektrum was talking about the cost of developing the system. The cost to develop the SkyID system is comparable to a 6-channel receiver with stabilization. So I had thought, and perhaps others, that maybe the remote ID could just be built into the existing receiver, so it'd just be a combined unit. That may happen someday, but right now that'd add about $100 to the cost of a system. Just as a side note, if the FAA regulations are not super clear between drones that have standard or factory installed remote ID and then ARF aircraft that don't come with a remote ID, where you have to supply a remote ID module. So the understanding or the direction from the FAA at this point, the drones come pretty much ready to fly out of the box with everything you need. That requires, per the FAA direction, standard ID to be built in at the factory. If an ARF ready to fly, plug and play, is missing certain keys to have everything needed ready to fly, something as simple as a battery or a charger, the manufacturer is not obligated to make it remote ID compliant with a standard ID out of the factory. So that's a way to keep costs down. That path is being followed by several of the models on Horizon Hobby. The only way to be compliant with the remote ID, if you don't have the standard involved with the factory, is either have the remote ID module, which the SkyID is, or you fly in a FRIA. And Spektrum is taking the time. There's probably, who knows how many of these are going to sell, but they do see the need mandated by the FAA for modelers to have some sort of practical remote ID system, and Spektrum has delivered the SkyID system. So final notes on the SkyID system. Looking at various videos, it seems very easy to operate. When it has power, you turn it on. The flashing lights will tell you what's going on. It's looking for the GPS signal. When it has a good lock onto the GPS, it's a steady light and you're ready to fly. That's all you need to do. There's no antennas or orientation of the system in the airplane. It just goes in the airplane once it has a GPS lock. An important item, it'll be covered in the manual. Each SkyID will have a unique serial number on it. You're going to have to take that serial number on the drone zone portion of the FAA website. You're going to have to enter that serial number with your registration number for your RC models. Remember, remote ID is tied to a drone registration. If there's no drone registration, there's no remote ID required. So for models that weigh less than 250 grams or about 8.8 ounces, there's no need to register them. There's no need for remote ID. For example, in this little model I made of the Mini Lazy Bee, the link is in the description with plans. There's no remote ID required because it weighs less than 8.8 ounces. So you'll have to do that before you fly, and then you're all set to go. Also, an important point, remote ID, the remote ID modules, if you're a recreational flyer, you need just one remote ID module for your entire fleet of aircraft. If you have 200 models and you're a recreational flyer, you can swap the SkyID between all your models. It's about as much work as swapping out a battery pack. You just unplug it and plug it in and you're good to go. But one remote ID for every model. If your Part 107 is a different story, you know what the rules are. You're going to have a remote ID for each Part 107 model. That's tied into your registration on the website. So thank you for tuning into this video. The SkyID looks like a pretty good start at an affordable price point, under $100 for a remote ID module, planes that you build at home, kit-built airplanes, ARFs, ready-to-flies, anything that doesn't come with remote ID out of the factory. You'll need this remote ID to fly after September 16th, unless you're in a FRIA and FAA Recognized Identification Area. Thank you very much.